So today's video, I'm going to be talking about my labor experience when I had Jensen. As you've seen from the last video, I wasn't able to record me giving birth to Jensen due to their rules because they don't want to get sued for malpractice, which I totally was bogus. But we were going to secretly film it. We had everything planned out on how we were going to do it because we were going to film. Like, it wasn't about to. I wasn't about to, But so we weren't able to film. But the reason why is because my whole birth plan that I had set planned, I was prepared for it. I was ready. My doctor knew everything I wanted to be done. Pretty much was thrown out the window. So the last thing y'all see in the last video, get off, was the epidural. I had just gotten the epidural, and I was amazing, fine, happy. I was excited. I was ready to go. An hour after that, that's when things really started going downhill. The epidural stopped. It pretty much stopped working altogether. They kept telling me to push the little button, and I kept pushing it like 100 times. I was like, it's not fucking working. It's not working. I mean, I literally went full, I'm gonna go say Marlena on this. Like, it wasn't even Marley. It was straight up Marlena bitch came out. Like, my mom and sisters were like, you need to calm down. I was like, no. Like, But, so an hour after I shot that footage, my epidural pretty much started to fail on me. And they kept saying, push the button, and it wasn't working. But the thing what happened was, and even my mom was like, they should have, did something else. So when they did the epidural, like I said, the epidural did not hurt at all when I got it. But we think that the lady messed up on it. So they brought in a trainee to do my epidural. And my mom said, and I felt it. I was like, what was that? But my mom said that when the lady went to go push the medicine in, she didn't do it right because the medicine went and squirted all over her. Because I felt it squirt because I could feel it on the back of my neck. I was like, what was that? So, they had the tube going up my back and to my shoulder and up to this little machine behind me. Well, they ended up putting the medicine through the tube. Well, an hour, I don't know if my body was just rejecting it or something, but like I said, an hour after I shot that footage, the epidural started failing, and I literally was starting to feel everything. So it was like I didn't even have an epidural. So like I said in the last video, for y'all that did it without pain medication, like, y'all are some real freaking troopers. Like, I don't know how y'all can freaking do that. That shit hurt. And I mean, I was crying and everything. So, what they were trying to do was they kept putting me in different positions. They're like, oh, well, the medicine's just not going to you right. I'm like, no, the medicine's not working at all. And like, I'm probably bugged these nurses. Even my mom was like, these nurses are gonna kill us. Because they're like, if you feel uncomfortable or you feel any pain, call us. Okay. I didn't hesitate to call y'all because I was literally hitting that call button like every 10 minutes. Or is to where I couldn't even do it anymore. But sorry. I'm like, the only time I can film is when he's asleep. But I hear him right now. I think he's okay. But anyway. Oh. Quiet, Jensen. Let me film. I don't ever get to film anymore. But anyway. So, they kept coming in and putting me in different positions, trying to make me feel better. Wasn't working at all. So then, I got all the way up to 9.5 centimeters. And I was like, all right, we're ready to do this, man. Like, only maybe like an hour and I'll be ready to push. But the thing is, I was already like, I gotta push. And they're like, no, you're not ready yet. You know, nothing's gonna happen. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So they kept coming in and checking me. Um, Around 8 centimeters. Um, One of my nurses, when she went to check me, she looked at the other nurse like really strange, and I was like, what? And I was like, because you're giving her a weird look, and that's scaring me. And so she went and she said something to her, and the other nurse was like, I'm gonna go ahead and check you now. I was like, okay. So then she checked me, and then she was like, yeah. She's like, I feel it. And I was like, what is it? I was like, what's wrong? I'm like, because y'all are freaking scaring me. And she said that the right side of my cervix was starting to swell. And I was like, what does that mean? She's like, well, we're just going to put you on your left side for, the remainder of the time to see if the swelling goes down. And I'm like, okay. So then we're on my left side. And then that's when I'm like, okay, now they're not going to move me anymore. Like, I had to be on my left side until they come and check me again in an hour. So miserable as ever, crying, just I can't handle it. So my midwife comes in, um, and she checks me. At that point, I was at 9.5 centimeters. I was like, all right, we're ready. I'm like, I'm fixing to be ready. Well, then she comes in and she checks me, and then the nurses told her, she's like, well, she was swelling on the right side. Well, she comes in and checks me, and she's like, yeah, she's like, she's starting to swell. My cervix was literally starting to swell, and it was coming from the right side, and it was going from the bottom. It was starting to, go around in a circle. It's starting to swell. So, what she did was, she said she was gonna go get something, but she wasn't gonna tell me what it was. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, I'm starting to get really confused and honestly scared because I'm scared that something's gonna happen to him. Well, then I started getting really really hot, and I started getting a fever, and then I'm starting to throw up everywhere, and like it's horrible. Luckily, I have a catheter in because I felt like I was gonna pee everywhere. But I started getting a fever, and I started throwing up really badly. Well, then they sent the actual doctor to come in and check. So they went and called Dr. Harrison, and he came in and checked. And then at that point, he was like, yeah, he's like, your cervix is totally swollen. He was like, and your baby is stuck in your birth canal. He's like, he's not going to be able to come out. He's like, so we're going to have to do an emergency C-section. At that point, I'm like literally crying. And oh my God, why am I crying now? I'm going to end up crying at the end of this video to tell y'all what happened. Because I do it every time. But, so he was like, we're going to have to perform an emergency C-section. He's like, he's stuck. He's like, he's starting to get distressed. He's like, we got to make sure baby's okay. He's like, we got to make sure you're okay. Because right now I have a fever. I'm throwing up. Hold on one second, I'll be right back. He's starting to act up. Don't worry, I'll show y'all to him in a minute. Anyway, baby. So, Dr. Harrison came in and he was like, we're going to have to do an emergency C-section. Let me tell y'all, they prepped me up in like 5 minutes, and I was up in that room. And I was like, honestly, like, I prepared myself as well, just in case something did go wrong for a C-section. So, I honestly was ready. Like, I wasn't, going crazy or stuff and like asking questions. I had already did my research. I'd already talked to people that had C-sections before, and I was like, I was mentally prepared. Probably wasn't physically prepared, but I was mentally prepared for a C-section. So when he was like, emergency C-section, of course I started crying because that's not what I wanted. But then again, kind of like sucked it up because it's what's best for my son. Trying to make sure that he's okay, that I'm okay, and stuff. Because at this point, we're both like, we're not okay at all. So again, then they start giving me some like pain medication for it. And again, my body's not taking anything. So my body was literally rejecting any kind of medication they were giving me. And that's what was making everything horrible. So, I know. So then, so they rolled me away into the room. They asked who I wanted to be in the room with me. I was allowed one person, and I told them I wanted my mom to be in there with me. So so they suited my mom up. They had her scrubbed down. They had me in the room prepping and stuff, and then they started the anesthetic came in, so he would numb me and stuff. Well, then here's where things go down again. So he was like, "Can you feel this?" I was like, "Yes." And he was like, "Okay." He's like, "Give her another dose." And then he waited a little bit. He's like, "Okay, can you feel this now?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "What do you feel?" I said, "I feel you pinching me." And he's like, "Do you feel it here?" I said, "Yeah, I feel it." I said, "I can feel you pinching me." And then my mom came in. I look at her. I was like, "I can feel everything." And she's like, "What do you mean you can feel everything?" I was like, "They're having to give me another dose." I said, "Because I keep feeling them pinching me down there." And she's like, "Where are they pinching you at?" I said, "They're pinching me on my stomach." I said, like right where they were gonna cut me. I said, "Because I know where they're gonna cut you at." And then so they waited, and then after they gave me a double dose, they asked me again. They're like, "Can you feel this?" I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What the crap?" And then they're like, "Can you feel this?" And it was a freaking, I don't know if it was a blade or what it was. I said, "I feel that." I said, "That hurts." And then that's when they're like, "All right, we're going to have to put her under." He's like, her body's not taking it. He's like, "We're going to put her under." And then, so that's when the doctor was telling my mom, he's like, "You're not going to be able to be in the room." He's like, "I'm sorry." He's like, "We're going to have to put a tube down her throat." He's like, "We're going to have to hook her up." He's like, and, he's like, "I don't want you, passing out, seeing your daughter like that." He's like, so, he's like, he goes, "I really do apologize." He's like, "But we're going to ask you to leave." And so, um, my mom was upset. She wanted to see, her grandson. And, but, pretty much at that point, they're having to save, both our lives right now because, like, I'm still throwing up. And, like, my fever is, like, really high. Like, I'm in there, like, the pain was horrible. I don't know if it was because he was stuck and I felt everything. I honestly, I don't know what happened, but it was just so bad that they were even like, this isn't right. So, they put me under, and then, oh my God, please don't cry. What really upset me was that, God, oh God, don't cry, don't cry, was that I didn't get to, experience, that 1 hour bonding time that you're supposed to have with your child. I didn't get a chance, for him to be, put on me. God, don't cry. Um, and all that kind of stuff. But, what really upset me is that they kept me asleep, 2 hours after he was born. So he was born at 2:35, and I didn't wake up till almost 5 o'clock. They let me wake up on my own. They didn't wake me back up. So for 2 hours, I didn't get to see my son. And, I'm glad that my mom was there. But the thing is that, my mom had him the whole time. And then my sister, and then my Oma. So I was the fourth person to see my own son. And that's what upset me the most. And, but, again, it did upset me. But, God. Sorry, y'all. But, I was just really glad that he was okay. And then what also sucked is that I literally was waking up. My mom had walked in the room. Like, as soon as I woke up, I wasn't even awake for like 2 minutes. And they roll him in. And they give him to me. But the thing was, I was so out of it, I couldn't even hold my own son. Like, I couldn't even, I wasn't even recognizing what was going on. I was still, waking up, you know, everything was all so numb. I couldn't even hold my son when they gave him to me. Like, I had him in my arms, and, like, I looked at him, and I was like, he is so cute. Oh, he's asleep. And the first thing I realized, he had the same birthmark as me. And then, but I literally had to give him to my mom. I said, I can't hold him. I was like, I'm like, he's gonna fall. I was like, I can't hold him. I don't have the strength right now to. So, that really did suck. So it wasn't until like probably like 30 minutes after that I was actually able to hold him, and they also were like, he hasn't eaten yet, and I'm like, what do you mean he hasn't eaten yet? Like, you would think that him first being born, like, it's been almost 3 hours and he hasn't eaten. I would think, I would throw it out of the boat, even though I don't want him to have formula and stuff, that they would give him a bottle of formula just so he has something, he's eating. But they literally waited until he was like, he was in my arms to feed him. So I fed him, and he latched on perfectly and stuff, so he was good. But I really did have a horrible labor experience, and it really did suck. But the good news is I got to have this little guy. Yeah. So I'm really happy. But that was my labor experience, my horrible labor experience. I know, monkey. But yep. So that is it for this video, and I hope, yeah, that's it for this video. So.